We got Scott Weltz up here, winner of the 200 breast. We'll do the press conference just like every other time. You guys ask a question, microphone will be ran around, and announce your name, outlet, and Scott will answer them. We'll go with Karen to kick it off.
Karen Kraus, New York Times. Scott, how do you go from 37th in this event 4 years ago to first?
I really don't know. I think it's a lot of great coaching. I think it's something I really wanted. When I graduated, I took about 8 months off, and I just kind of had an itch, I guess you could say, and I really wanted it, and I figured if I'm going to put myself in debt trying to afford to keep swimming, I might as well, give it my best. So I think it's just hard work, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, and I guess having a great coach really helps.
Dan?
Hi, Dan Albano, Orange County Register. Since we don't have your bio in the media guide, and you just mentioned your coach, can you tell us about your coaching and your training? Who your coach is and your training?
Let's see, my coach is Peter Motakaitis. He's been my coach. I went to UC Davis. My first couple of years, I was more of a distance swimmer, so I didn't swim with him. I swam with Rick Henderson. But toward my junior year, I kind of transferred over to shorter things and started focusing on breaststroke a little more. Pete always, as our team was cut, UC Davis lost its men's swim team. So he transferred over and became the assistant coach for the women. And after I graduated, I went back to him. I know he helped put Haley Cope on the 2004 Olympic team. And he asked me if I was really serious about it, because he didn't really want to, mess around, because he puts a lot into it. I owe him, a lot for that. But we sat down, we had a plan from day one. He said, dude, we're going to do this. We started doing a lot of things differently. Sometimes I joke with him and say, if you would have trained our whole team like this, we would have been way better. But we started going on, different cycles. We were going 5 days on, 1 day off, instead of following the weekly thing. Pretty hard swing weekends and things. But also, I train. We don't have a team, so it's just me and him in the pool. A lot of times, I just kind of train by myself. Sometimes the women's team's there, but they're doing their own thing. So he's really the only one there to push me, and you always give me words of encouragement. And basically, he has a plan, and we stick to it. Any more? Do you have any other questions about that?
Let's go with Karen again, and then Scott.
How many times have you been told that if you really want to take it seriously, you need to go to a program where you can train with other men? And can you just talk about the what you've gained from having this, what some would say is a non-conventional training?
Yeah, it's true. Pete was actually the only person who even recruited me out of high school. So it was, he obviously, I guess, saw something maybe early on, but I always, kind of wanted to go to, school like Texas, things like that, Cal, Stanford, because, you think you go to these big schools, you train with these guys. But, when I came back and I knew I'd be training by myself, Pete said, you're going to be mentally tougher than anyone out there because you do this by yourself. Also, sometimes I like, doing it for the little guys. UC Davis, pretty small school, not really known for, swimming. In fact, we just actually, I have a title of volunteer assistant coach for the women's team, but another volunteer coach from our track team, she graduated and she just made the London Olympic team. She's a distance runner, and she probably trains a lot. I've seen her in the weight room kind of by herself. She probably does it a lot too. And I think it's just really cool to represent kind of a small team like that. And we found out last night she had made, in the finals, she dropped like 30 seconds. She's a distance runner, and in the last 100 yards, I guess she passed 2 people by a couple hundreds of seconds to get third and get her FINA A cut. And her coach emailed Pete and said, never count an Aggie out. Because sometimes I think you have that mentality, you don't have all this, maybe this big a support or all that, but you kind of have a little chip on your shoulder because you don't have that, and you want to prove something to people.
Scott.
Scott Motice with Athletes in Action. Speaking of just kind of what you commented on there, you said that Herb Brooks is your sports hero. He definitely was the epitome of the little guy in winning.
Yes.
If Herb was here today, what do you think he would say to you? What advice do you think he'd give you as you head to London?
I don't know. I watch that movie Miracle every time before I go to a swim meet. My girlfriend gets really annoyed because I kind of repeat the lines before he says them. I love that speech he gives. And he'd probably say something like that, what does he say? If you played him 10 times, they might beat you 9, but, not tonight, not this time. So, I think that he, that's what it's about. It's about putting yourself out there. My old age group swim coach really liked the part where after they won, it shows in the movie, he goes and kind of lets them celebrate, and he goes in the hallway kind of by himself. And, in his little speech at the end says how much he was proud of them for giving up so much of themselves. And, things like that, I think you really do have to give up a lot, and having people there who would support you you'd probably say something, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now.
Let's go with Bill. And then those three all in a row.
Hi, Bill Shakin from the LA Times. Number one, are you the first Aggie to make the Olympic team as a men's swimmer?
As a men's swimmer, I really don't know. Maybe. I really don't know.
All right.
We were Division II until about 4 years ago, so I really don't know.
And number two, and maybe a little more seriously, I see you got the Aggie wear you're sporting here.
Yeah.
Given that they really cut the team and made a statement that men's swimming was something less than a priority,
Yeah.
It seems a little incongruous for you to be wearing shirts plugging them. Do you think there's any inconsistency there? Hey, gung-ho, let's get them.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, people are like, wow, aren't you, mad that they did that? Why do you want to keep supporting them? But I think it means a lot. I was lucky enough I was able to graduate the year they cut it, so I finished out. But, a lot of the guys on the team weren't able to. So, I think I do it for them in part. I do it just so people remember. I mean, I'm still swimming. We're still around. Pete's still, coaching women. So even though, they tried to, get rid of us, but we're a little more difficult to get rid of, I think, than they thought.
Go ahead.
Scott, Mark Cannizzaro for the New York Post. As good as your story is, can you appreciate what's going on with Jason Lezak here? And I'm sure you're familiar with Ryan scratching and giving him the opportunity for getting the final today. And can you just kind of talk about that, going to...
Yeah, I was actually watching that race, and I was really rooting for him. I think that's really cool. I'm really glad he got to go. I'm actually really glad I get to go on a team with, Brendan Hansen, Eric Chanteau. I've watched those guys swimming for a while, really look up to them. I really enjoyed being in that finals in the breaststroke right between them. My parents said I got a lot of airtime on TV because of it. But I think it's awesome to have, so many good leaders like that. I mean, when Lezak did that in the relay 4 years ago, that was, one of the most amazing things I've ever seen happen. And to have those leaders on the team and these guys that have all the experience, I think it's going to really help me because I have, zero experience. So I'm definitely have someone to look up to. I'm really honored, I think, to just, be a part of that. I mean, these guys are like legends. And to be able to be associated with them in some way I think is really cool, and I'm really grateful for that.
We'll go Dan, and then Karen will wrap it up.
Again, congratulations. Is there something that goes with the breaststroke, with all the moving parts, the timing of the legs, people do the arms different? Because of all the moving parts, does it lend itself more to upsets, that particular race where, sometimes you hear about, the young 14-year-old girl can come up, she's real light, she can go super fast, but there's different things with that race. Do you think it's unique that lends itself to upsets?
I definitely think it's unique. It's funny because I kind of used to be an IMer, but when I came back, it seemed like the most open events were breaststroke. Of course, that was before Brendan Hansen decided to come back. But it is definitely a unique stroke, and sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. In the prelims, I felt great. In the semifinals, I felt awful. I tried a lot harder and actually went slower. Which is kind of why I swam this morning. It's kind of a big risk. I don't know if it's a big risk, but I swam the 200 IM in prelims. Most people, were like, why would you do that? I don't want to rest. But it was really important to me to get my stroke back underneath me. You know, it's such a rhythm and timing thing. If you're off, you're off, and just little teeny differences can make you can feel terrible at the end of the race. You can feel amazing. So it is definitely a unique stroke. I think I read an article that my coach sent me about how breaststrokers are always the weird people on the team, both physically and I don't know how we act. I guess we're kind of the outcasts maybe. But I mean, it definitely is a different stroke, and it lends itself to, maybe you could say upsets. I don't know. Some people say it's it's the most difficult because it's so weird. So maybe the people usually have it locked down. It might not be as big of an upset. I don't really know.
We're actually going to end it there. Scott, thanks.
Okay.